Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we finally got some gameplay for Nurgle vs Slaanesh. Some proper gameplay mixed in with some cinematic shots. So that means that we're going to be able to see a bunch of different units from both the Nurgle and Slaanesh roster just fighting it out, and there's some pretty cool animations. Before anything, there's two things that you need to know. First off, this video was of course supplied by Creative Assembly, so anything that you see on screen and any gameplay and so on was recorded by members of staff. Second, there's going to be a lot of stopping and analyzing throughout this video. It's about a 5-minute clip, and if you haven't seen the original just yet, at the end of this video it'll be timestamped, so you can skip to that if you want and then come back here, as there's going to be a lot to discuss. Now, with all that being said, let's just jump right in because this is pretty exciting.
Death. Inevitable, inescapable, irrefutable.
Just a minor stop here, we're going to get a really good look at the whole realm of Nurgle in a very visual way. This is really exciting, especially for tabletop players, as there's never really been a lot of artwork going around the realms of chaos. So yeah, like, it is really impressive. Nurgle's realm is looking really cool, and hopefully it won't be too long until we can see a Slaaneshi one too.
Where there is death, there is fear. And from that fear, the Father was born. The Plague Lord, the Chaos God of disease.
Keep in mind that what we're seeing here is the actual battle map. This is the main focus of the video, and yeah, it's impressive. We can see so many things. We'll actually get to see the minimap in just a little bit, but these maps are cool, and if we're going to get stuff like this throughout all of Warhammer 3, well, it's at least going to be a lot of variety, and it's going to be quite fun. It'll give us more incentive to carry on playing through battles and not just auto-resolving.
Decay, destruction, and death by rebirth. Nurgle is undoubtedly the oldest of the ruinous powers, for death and decay are as old as life itself. The garden and its continuous growth and care are chief amongst the Flylord's concerns.
So we've been getting a good look of the Slaaneshi stuff already, and this is quite exciting as obviously we've been able to see the Marauder units, both of them. We've actually got the Spear variant and the Hell Scourges there on foot, which for me was one of the biggest highlights of the most recent reveals, as we've never really had them on the tabletop, and it's something I've always really wanted. Plus, that also means that we've got Slaaneshi Mortals and not reskinned Chaos Warriors. We've also got an Exalted Keeper of Secrets at the very front. This is the more new design. Some people were taken back by it, but I honestly really like it. I think it's really nice and it fits with the theme really well. We've obviously got Fiends in the background too, a Soul Grinder of Slaanesh, and some Demonettes. Now, a lot of the unit roster has actually been shown off here, and we'll be able to discuss that later on in the video.
That prized garden, diligently nurtured and toiled, stands sullied under the presence of indolent hedonists, seeking
We've also got both variants of the Hellstriders of Slaanesh, the standard ones, which is the main one in front of the screen right now, and the Hell Scourges, which will show up a little bit later. These are what the Marauders are based on. It's literally just these guys on foot, but they look really good. Obviously, the Marauders on foot are using helmets and so on, which is more the Hell Scourge variant, and I think that was done really well. I'm honestly really impressed with the animations so far that we've seen for Slaanesh. As many of you guys know, it's my favorite Chaos God, so I was kind of concerned that Slaanesh was not going to get any cool stuff, or just not a few different variants and so on, but so far everything is looking really great.
For their excessive and decadent domain, these playthings of Slaanesh.
Okay, so I'm jumping right in with an edit here, as I'll be very honest with you, I did not notice originally that the Soul Grinder of Slaanesh actually has a Slaaneshi claw. It's keeping to the theme, which is incredibly important as we've seen with all the other Chaos Gods, but let's continue.
Have courted the ire of Kugath Plaguefather, the fetid Brewmaster, the rotting Poxmaker. Kugath's fascination with the breeding of fresh, virulent life has earned him high favor among Nurgle's chosen. Obsessed with concocting the perfect contagion, the Plaguefather returns to the realms.
I'm cutting into this dude's voice lines a lot, but he speaks a lot, and obviously I need to put in my input here. So before we look at anything, look on the right hand side to the minimap. It's a pretty cool map layout. It's got loads of layers. We can see that it's based on loads of hills and so on. I like the design, and I'm hoping that we're going to see loads and loads of different style of maps. So far, I think they've been trying to show as many unique maps as possible, and I'm I'm all for it because, well, you know, that would be kind of cool. And yeah, I'm happy. The Nurgle roster itself is quite varied. It's got a lot of different types of units. We can see that it's a very small map, so everyone's going to be fighting in one location. It's pretty much a bridge. Well, it looks like a bridge. We also know that those things on the side are actually teeth, so hey, it could literally be the mouth of something. Anyways, pretty decent sized roster. We're seeing a lot of variety when it comes to unit choices and so on, and we can see that clearly on the other side too. We'll get a better view of the Slaaneshi ones as they start crashing. We can also see obviously that all the Chaos Gods seem to have these special mechanics on the side, on the battle stuff. I don't think that's been outlined in a blog or anything, and I'm really not sure if the video itself showcased any of it in action, but I'm assuming that that will show up in a blog and so on. I know a lot of people aren't keen on these small type of maps, but it does look like it's got loads of big areas too. This is just one of those basic choke point ones, and it could be kind of fun, especially since both these armies are very heavily focused on melee. I believe that the Slaaneshi roster has no melee whatsoever as far as we've seen, of course some magic. Nurgle does have some range, but as we are aware, it's mostly short range, so they want to use that to hit and then go into melee.
Of chaos only rarely, but sees such visits as the opportune time to trial his newest plagues on rival demons. Nurglings spew pus and
Okay, so Nurglings binding together just to make a ball to hit some enemies is kind of adorable. The animations are cool. From everything that we see of Nurglings, we can tell that a lot of the animation budget has gone directly to them, and I'm all for it, but I want to see a bit more Slaaneshi stuff, so let's continue.
as they burst.
And there we can see the range of the Exalted Plague Bearers, which, in all fairness, I expected it to be a lot shorter. So, yeah, they've got some decent range, it's not too bad. I imagine that you'll still want to keep them pushing forward because it kind of makes sense, but if you can hold out, say, against any enemies that just want to charge into you and you want to form a meat shield, then a defensive line of Exalted Plague Bearers could work out quite well.
The knife-edged claws of Slaanesh's demonettes, whilst Plague Bearers wade their oozing masses into the riot of ecstasy and infection at the border of...
Right, my mistake, there was a second layer, so the map is a little bit bigger, but it's still based on choke points. Now, I'm curious to see eventually how the Marauders, especially since these are spears and shield, well, they're supposed to be spears because that's how they worked on the tabletop, but they might have a different thing here. Now, I want to see how well they do in melee. We've also got the Hellscourges too, which is the ones with the whips at the very bottom of the screen, which I imagine those to be more anti-infantry, so those make sense, but the spears, unless the spears do something different, I don't think they're going to do too well against the Plague Bearers here.
Of the melee, the Plague Father mulls, mixing concoctions both of material and mind. This sordid invasion feels to Kugath.
We already know that the Plague Father has decent range because I believe someone from CA posted the stats on the official Total War Discord. The flies, the wing animations are interesting. That's going to be kind of sickly for people if they're not used to it, especially if they end up using a lot of those flies, but it's done to be a proper bug, so it looks cool. Now, what we can see here, which is pretty interesting, is that there's a line right behind. I'm assuming those are the Exalted Plague Bearers, and I guess they're just trying to hold, maybe to fire a bit more. It's a bit weird, though. I'm not going to complain about the player playing the battle. We don't actually know who and what was doing what. Just a bit weirded out by the fact that the Exalted Keeper of Secrets is in the back. Like, a demon that big, you'd want it here in the middle smashing up those Plague Bearers, wouldn't you?
Reminiscent of Nakari, Slaanesh's notorious Keeper of Secrets. Kugath has served Grandfather Nurgle long enough.
I'm just stopping here for the sake of stopping because those rotflies look so cool. Like, really, really, really cool. It's making me feel bad that I've still got a bunch of them unpainted.
Enough to recognize a feint. A feint indeed. For why?
Okay, so we've seen two different types of demonettes, one with hair and one without. I'm imagining that the one with hair is the Exalted variant and the one without is the standard. It's not been confirmed just yet, we don't have a full Slaaneshi roster out. Either way, it works out really well because, well, from standard to Exalted for these demons, it's kind of difficult to make them stand out, so the hair at least will make them stand out.
Else would Nakari himself not be leading the charge? It is unlike the Arch-Tempter tutor to abstain from giving and receiving.
It does look like the Soul Grind of Nurgle has a decent rate of fire, firing 2 shots into the enemy. It's not too bad all things considered, because I do believe they stated that it doesn't have a lot of ammunition, so it'll want to go in and do as much damage as possible. Plus, you know, it's a big chonker, so why wouldn't you want it doing damage? In the background too, we can see some Chaos Spawn of Slaanesh, which, you know, surprise surprise, another reskin, but then again, this was going to happen, the other ones had that too.
Receiving the gift of pain. The young god Slaanesh has much to learn in the ways of subterfuge and could stand to study the arts employed and mastered by the great conspirator, with whom Nurgle carries a mutual and enduring contempt. But what schemes could Nakari be plotting? A full-scale assault on the garden? Unlikely. The feint here would suggest an attempt on Kugat's mortal territories. So it is the material realm Nakari means to blind the Plague Father.
So that was the Nurgle spell Rancid Visitations, which was a pretty cool animation. Does a direct damage attack, and yeah, it looks like it did quite a lot of hits towards those units. Plus, you know, cool factor, which is one of the most important things when it comes to these things because, you know, rule of cool.
A valiant effort, but Kugat sees the truth eventually. Nurgle may be slow at times, but it's by design.
Okay, I'm a bit confused about this scene specifically, mainly because why would those demonettes break from combat? It's a bit strange. It's not like you can flank throughout this area, because we've seen that it's kind of closed off, and yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me. Unless this was 2 developers playing and the developer decided to retreat the Slaaneshi demonettes? I'm not going to question it, or else we're just going to end up with a bunch of headaches.
Content with his assessment, Kugat means to end this distraction quickly. But first he must contend with Slaanesh's greater demon. This Keeper of Secrets unleashes its Lash of Slaanesh spell, felling a dozen weak...
Lash of Slaanesh looks like it could do a lot of damage if placed correctly, and yeah, that's gonna be quite fun. Visually it was awesome. I must say that possibly the animation's a bit too quick, but other than that, I think it could do a lot of damage, especially if it's knocking down on, say for example, a bunch of Nurglings.
Can forsaken with a single whip. The mere act of witnessing the Keeper's power fans Slaanesh's lesser demons into a blissful rapture, injecting them with vigor and enhancing their martial prowess.
I'm not sure if that's a hint towards their battle mechanic like we've seen with the other Chaos Gods and of course the Ogres. It could be cool, they will just have to be explained a little bit better obviously, because yeah, I don't know. It's clearly not going to be casting spells because, well, that's a Tzeentch thing. I'm honestly just waiting for them to explain how this is going to work with the Slaanesh roster and the Slaanesh mechanics, because I'm really excited. The more I'm seeing of it, the more I just can't wait for the Slaanesh week to happen.
The affront against the garden lasts longer than Kugat had wanted. Indeed, he itches to return to the mortal realms to brew new plagues and...
Okay, so we've been able to see a few shots up close, and from far away we've been able to see some stuff too. It looks like there's going to be a decent amount of sync animations between the Keeper of Secrets and the Soul Grinder. Hopefully we get to see this, because Warhammer 2 had a lot of really cool sync animations, and it would be really, really cool if that was carried over to Warhammer 3, because, I mean, we're getting a lot of big monsters, a lot of demons, and so on. It would just be pretty disappointing if we didn't have a lot of those animations. And what we can see here is that the demonettes are pushing in quite well. There's still some Marauders left, and there's obviously some Chaos Spawn. But yeah, it looks like Slaanesh is doing well here.
Discover Nakari's schemes. In an effort to overwhelm the Epicurean invaders, Kugat summons a tide of eager Nurglings. They swarm forth and explode on command.
Right, so that's how it works. You basically have them as a normal unit, you can have them fighting, and then you can choose to detonate them. I must admit, I'm quite impressed. Who doesn't want a bunch of exploding Nurglings that you can control when they explode? That's going to be really fun to use in campaigns, and I'm imagining multiplayer too.
Spreading disease and pus across the battlefield. Not satisfied with the explosion, the Plague Father employs the Law of Nurgle to summon up light boil. This festering, pulsing blister grows up through the ground before bursting in a shower of disgusting fluids.
Okay, 2 things. Firstly, that spell is awesome and I can't wait to use it myself. Secondly, we have seen that there's been some cycle charges going on with the Seekers of Slaanesh. I'm not sure if this was AI or player because we haven't seen pro gameplay, just being honest here, when it comes to CA staff, and it kind of just charged into the explosion too. I'm not trying to complain or anything, far from it, but that charge could have been planned out a lot better.
Slaanesh's demons wither and die beneath the strain of a dozen maladies. The garden is again secured, and Kugath can turn his attentions to the mortal realm at last.
Okay, so Nurgle wins. We kind of expected this because, well, yeah, this is the Nurgle focus time, so they're going to make Nurgle win. This is something I wanted to talk about, though, because a lot of you did mention it out. The weapons are quite large when it comes to the Marauders of Slaanesh with spears, and I can confirm to you that as I do have the unit roster for this specific battle. This is not the full Slaanesh roster, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. I wonder if that means, because we have seen in previous trailers a smaller version of the weapon, so maybe they'll have like a smaller mutation to count as a hand weapon and shield? I really hope so, because that would be kind of cool. That means we'd have the whip, the sword, hand weapon, and the spear, which, yeah, a lot of people would say that's a lot of reskins, but I'm all for it because, yeah, the Slaanesh roster is going to be small, so we need this.
Many potential plagues already lost to Nakari's schemes, Kugath cannot say. He knows only that the Arch-Tempter will suffer every sickness known to Grandfather Nurgle. The Father would expect no less.
Okay, so the battle is over, and before I do a little replay, we can talk about what was brought in on both sides, more specifically the Slaanesh one, because it seems it's going to be a lot of the roster from that. So, obviously for the Nurgle roster, we got Kulgarth Plaguefather, a Plague Ridden with Spells of Death, Nurglings, Plague Bearers, Exalted Plague Bearers, Pox Riders of Nurgle, Spawn of Nurgle. I didn't see them there, to be honest. Plague Toads, Plague Drones with Death Heads, Rotflies, Beasts of Nurgle, and Soul Grinders of Nurgle. Now, the Slaanesh thing might be the most interesting, as this might be very close to the complete roster. Obviously, not everything was shown on screen, but this is really curious. This was confirmed by Creative Assembly, but on that battle was an Exalted Keeper of Secrets, an Allurus with the Lore of Shadow riding an Exalted Seeker Chariot, so obviously mount options. That was Lords and Heroes, but then we've got Marauders of Slaanesh with spears, we saw those, Marauders of Slaanesh with Hell Scourges, we saw those, Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes, we saw those too. We saw two different Hellstriders, which were the standard ones with the spears, and the other one with the Hell Scourges, Seekers of Slaanesh 2, Hellflares, which are a type of chariot, Heartseekers, I don't think we saw. Now that, what it is essentially, is just the unit commander of the Seekers of Slaanesh. The unit commander for Seekers of Slaanesh on the tabletop were known as Heartseekers, so I guess these are the Exalted Seekers of Slaanesh, just with a fancier name, which, you know, works well. There was also a Standard Seeker Chariot, Fiends of Slaanesh, and Spawn of Slaanesh. That's 14. That's already quite a lot. That's almost a complete roster. We're obviously missing the Chaos Furies of Slaanesh, and I don't know what else. Unless the roster itself is only at 15, which, yeah, could work. But say if then Marauders of Slaanesh with hand weapons get added in, or just a smaller mutation, that's 16. The Cultist of Slaanesh, I just remembered about that, which is of course 17. A Keeper of Secrets standard, so that's 18. And what am I missing? I'm missing something. The Herald of Slaanesh. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Yeah. Wow, okay. Sorry, I'm recording this first take live, so any thoughts that I'm having are just coming out into the microphone right now. Yeah, that's the whole roster. Wow, okay, that's quite impressive. I do hope that means that we will have a standard Marauder with hand weapon, although I'm pretty sure people will mod that in anyway. Either way, it does sound quite exciting, and there's a lot to discuss. With all that being said, what do you guys think about this? I'm honestly really hyped up. I thought the battle was really cool. The animations were awesome, the spells looked awesome, and I'm just thinking we're getting closer and closer to the proper Slaanesh reveals, which means that we can learn about mechanics and so on. I'm not trying to push Nurgle aside, but I've been waiting 5 years for a specific faction, and we're finally getting really close to it. And we've already been seeing a lot of animations and so on for it, so I'm just really excited. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion, as there's quite a bit to talk about, and I really want to see what you guys think.
Death. Inevitable, inescapable, irrefutable. Where there is death, there is fear. And from that fear, the Father was born. The Plague Lord, the Chaos God of disease, decay, destruction, and death by rebirth. Nurgle is undoubtedly the oldest of the ruinous powers, for death and decay are as old as life itself. The garden and its continuous growth and care are chief amongst the Fly Lord's concerns. That prized garden, diligently nurtured and toiled, stands sullied under the presence of indolent hedonists, seeking expansion for their excessive and decadent domain. These playthings of Slaanesh have courted the ire of Kugath Plaguefather, the fetid brewmaster, the rotting poxmaker. Kugath's fascination with the breeding of fresh, virulent life has earned him high favor among Nurgle's chosen. Obsessed with concocting the perfect contagion, the Plaguefather returns to the realms of chaos only rarely, but sees such visits as the opportune time to trial his newest plagues on rival demons. Nurglings spew pus and disease as they burst on the knife-edged claws of Slaanesh's demonettes, whilst plague-bearers wade their oozing masses into the riot of ecstasy and infection. At the border of the melee, the Plaguefather mulls, mixing concoctions both of material and mind. This sordid invasion feels to Kugath reminiscent of Nakari, Slaanesh's notorious keeper of secrets. Kugath has served Grandfather Nurgle long enough to recognize a feint. A feint indeed. For why else would Nakari himself not be leading the charge? It is unlike the Arch-Tempter to abstain from giving and receiving the gift of pain. The young god Slaanesh has much to learn in the ways of subterfuge and could stand to study the arts employed and mastered by the great conspirator, with whom Nurgle carries a mutual and enduring contempt. But what schemes could Nakari be plotting? A full-scale assault on the garden? Unlikely. The feint here would suggest an attempt on Kugath's mortal territories. So it is the material realm Nakari means to blind the Plaguefather to. A valiant effort, but Kugath sees the truth eventually. Nurgle may be slow at times, but it's by design. Content with his assessment, Kugath means to end this distraction quickly. But first he must contend with Slaanesh's greater demon. This Keeper of Secrets unleashes its Lash of Slaanesh spell, felling a dozen weakened Forsaken with a single whip. The mere act of witnessing the Keeper's power fans Slaanesh's lesser demons into a blissful rapture, injecting them with vigor and enhancing their martial prowess. The affront against the garden lasts longer than Kugath had wanted. Indeed, he itches to return to the mortal realms to brew new plagues and discover Nakari's schemes. In an effort to overwhelm the Epicurean invaders, Kugath summons a tide of eager Nurglings. They swarm forth and explode on command, spreading disease and pus across the battlefield. Not satisfied with the explosion, the Plaguefather employs the Law of Nurgle to summon up light boil. This festering, pulsing blister grows up through the ground before bursting in a shower of disgusting fluids. Slaanesh's demons wither and die beneath the strain of a dozen maladies. The garden is again secured, and Kugath can turn his attentions to the mortal realm at last. How many potential plagues already lost to Nakari's schemes, Kugath cannot say. He knows only that the Arch-Tempter will suffer every sickness known to Grandfather Nurgle. The Father would expect no less.
But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.